Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 5:32, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going ahead and ask that those that want to join us to stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do a roll call. Director Julie Bocanegra.
Here.
Director Victoria Bradford.
Here.
Director Jacqueline Weatherspoon.
Here.
Director Rob Perkins.
Here.
Superintendent John Boyd.
Here.
Administrative Assistant Lori Stroll. Here. Thank you. Next is our land acknowledgement, and Director Bocanegra is going to go ahead and read that for us.
Thanks, Jenny. Evergreen Public Schools resides on the traditional lands of the Chinookan peoples and the Cowlitz tribe. They have lived on and cared for this land and its waterways since time immemorial. We thank them for their stewardship and make this acknowledgement to open a space of recognition, inclusion, and respect for all Indigenous students, families, and staff in our community.
Thank you. Okay, next is the tonight's agenda. Ask for a motion.
I move adoption of the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is music in our schools. Go ahead and introduce Corinne Ormson. Oh, there you are. Sorry, you were behind the podium. I couldn't see you. Thank you. Go ahead.
Are we reading the proclamation first?
Do you want to do that first? Okay. We go. Sorry, Corinne. Hold on a second. Yeah, we want you up front and presenting too. Are you reading it?
Right, so March is Music in Our Schools Month. Whereas the study of music contributes to young people's development through heightened skills in listening, reading, self-expression, and creativity, and whereas music education in the schools includes a broad range of types of music and active musical experiences, and whereas music and the other arts significantly enhance the morale and quality of the school environment, and whereas it is the stated objective of the public school to prepare children for a productive role in our society, and whereas the National Association for Music Education has designated March 2022 as Music in Our Schools Month, focusing on the theme Music Inspires. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Evergreen Public Schools endorses the observance of Music in Our Schools Month as an opportunity to support the purposes and practices of music education and encourages teachers, parents, students, and all citizens to participate. The Board of Education of the Evergreen Public Schools, for its own part, rededicates itself to the maintenance of a music education program that will be relevant to the needs of the children placed in its care and will reach and positively influence each child.
Thank you so much. All of our music faculty appreciates the honor, and I think you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from students. So today I have to sing for you the chamber choir from Union High School. They participated in the vocal solo and ensemble regional competition about 2 weeks ago, and there were 12 categories in that competition, and of those 12, students from our district, from Evergreen, won 11 of those categories. So we're really proud of our showing. This choir is one of those 11 groups that won, and so they will be representing Evergreen Public Schools at the state competition in April. So we're going to bring in the chamber choir from Union High School under the direction of Joel Karn.
Hello, we are the Union High School Chamber Choir. We will be singing 2 selections for you today. The first is Oh Love by Elaine Hagenberg, and then we will close with a spiritual called Rock of My Soul by Stacy Gibbs. And our accompanist today is Lori Collier.
Rock-a-my, yes, rock-a-my, yes, rock-a-my, yes, rock-a-my soul. Lordy, rock-a-my, yes, rock-a-my, yes, rock-a-my, rock-a-my, rock-a-my soul. Lordy, rock-a-my, rock-a-my, rock-a-my soul. Lordy, rock-a-my, rock-a-my, rock-a-my soul. My soul, my soul, my soul. Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, Lord, just to rock me in the bosom of Abraham. Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, yes, Lordy, rock, oh, won't you rock-a-my soul? Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, Lord, just to rock me in the bosom of Abraham. Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, yes, Lordy, rock, oh, won't you rock-a-my soul? Rockin', keep a rockin' my soul. Yes, rock, keep a rockin' my soul. Rockin', keep a rockin' my soul. Hallelujah, rock, keep a rockin' my soul. While rich man dies, oh Lord, he lives so well. Yes, Lord. And when he died, he found a home in the pits of hell. Yes, he did. Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, Lord, just to rock me in the bosom of Abraham. Rock-a-my soul in the bosom, yes, Lordy, rock, oh, won't you rock-a-my soul? Well, poor man Lazarus, poor as you and I. Yes, Lord, and when he died, he rock my soul in the bosom, Lord. Just a rock, rock me in the bosom of Abraham. Rock my soul in the bosom, yes. Lordy rock, oh won't you rock my soul? Rock me, Lord. Won't you rock me, Lord? Won't you rock me, Lord? Won't you rock me, Lord? Rock me, Lord, rock me, Lord. Rock me, Lord, yes. Rock, won't you rock my soul? Oh, oh, won't you rock my soul? Rock my soul. Rock my soul. Rock my soul. Oh, won't you rock, can't you rock, Lordy, rock my soul? My soul, won't you rock, can't you rock, Lordy, rock my soul?
Okay, that was so incredible. I had goosebumps. I I did got a tear in my eye on that first song. Ladies, your sound was so pure and clean and just so beautiful. And guys, you sounded so rich, and all of you together, it was just magnificent. It really was. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm proud of your teacher and the program that we have for music, because I know how much this brings to your experience in our schools. And thank you for, that was one of the best dang concerts ever. I loved it. Go ahead. I know I get enthused.
You know, I get enthused too. A lot. I know a few people in this choir. It's nice to see you guys. And congratulations on your win at Solo and Ensemble. I hope you do well in the competition. I have to ask, when did you begin rehearsing these pieces? 2 weeks ago? 3? A couple months. So 2 months of daily preparation, right? It's beautiful. The chord at the double forte right at the end, right before the ending of the first piece, it was perfect. And it takes us right back to the last time a choir was in here led by this gentleman, because we teared up then too. He really brought peace and just a good feeling into the room. Thank you for coming.
Well, I think you're going to do great at state, right? And I think that you're so good that your instructor can just, sit and watch like the rest of us. Which is amazing, because you all know exactly to do when, and it's incredible. I don't know all the chords and things like Rob does, but I know good music.
Yeah, and I'm just speechless. What never happens to me. You guys are stunning, beautiful. Thank you for coming and performing. It was just outstanding.
It was genuinely moving. Thank you very much.
We love to start our meetings with these smiles on our faces. So thank you guys. We truly appreciate when you come and perform for us, so we can see what you guys are doing out there, and we get to hear your beautiful voices. So thank you guys for taking time out of your evening and coming and performing for us. We really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Yes.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah, can't wait to hear how things go in April. Exciting.
Oh,
Well, knock 'em dead. You will be great.
Madam President, I'd like to be excused.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
thank you guys. Kind of nice. I don't want to put her on the spot right now, because she's going to present another award. Are you ready to present?
I am. So just as a kind of a continuation, it's lucky it happens the same month. We would also like to recognize a special colleague tonight who has been selected by his peers in the Lower Columbia River region of music educators as our outstanding music educator of 2022, and that's Bruce Dunn. Would you come up? So Bruce Dunn is the current band director at Covington Middle School, and he's also at Silver Star and Sunset, where he teaches beginning band. Previously, he's been the band director at Pacific Middle School and Mountain View, among other schools in our district. He continually goes above and beyond for students and advocates for music education and the skills that that provides. There goes our beautiful choir. He demonstrates exemplary teaching and student learning and believes that every student has a place in his classroom. He's also a professional musician. You may have seen him in the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra or the Southwest Washington Wind Symphony. He's a most deserving recipient of this recognition, as evidenced by the outstanding work he does each day in bringing music to life for and with students. So we're honored to have you here in Evergreen Public Schools and are happy to recognize your excellence tonight. Thank you.
We have been so fortunate to have band instructors, music instructors, who are not only really good in our school with our students, but they're outside in the great world practicing what they teach. And it is just, I feel so proud of them all because, I mean, look at the results of that. And it must be fun for you to see them as the littles and then to see them like this lovely group of students at high school, to see that transition and having that, having the ability to teach our students music. And we all know that having music in our schools is a way to improve kids' thinking and mathematical acuity, and there's all kinds of evidence about that. So I appreciate everything that you've given to these kids. Thank you.
Okay. The next on the agenda is the board consent agenda. A motion?
I move for approval of the board consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next is the superintendent's consent agenda.
I move adoption of the superintendent's consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're going to go ahead and go into our budget update. It looks like, John, are you giving that tonight? All right.
I am going to give the budget summary tonight. Jennifer Jacobson couldn't be with us tonight, so I'm going to do that and give you a high-level summary of the budget situation. And thanks to some good work from our local folks in terms of working with the legislature, including Rob, and we were able to get some resources in a couple of different ways from the last legislative session. The enrollment stabilization to the tune of about $12 million really supports us, and then enhancements of the prototypical model over the next 3 years. So it'll build. We'll get some this year, some the next year, and more the following year. So combined with the enrollment stabilization and the prototypical model enhancements and our ESSER funds, using those to keep our enrollment, our budget stable during these dropping in enrollment. We are anticipating that we'll end the year even, and that's good news as we have just an approximate 5% fund balance. So we're pretty confident we're going to be even or just a little bit up to be able to add maybe a touch to that fund balance. So good news on the budget front. It's still going to be tight for us over the next few years as we continue to have the declining enrollment roll up through our grade levels. We're going to be in a state of having to continually kind of adjust our enrollment unless our enrollment comes up significantly over the next couple of years. And so we're projecting our enrollment conservatively, but not so conservatively that we can't staff our schools. So we're trying to hit that sweet spot there. So We've prepared Jennifer's prepared a memo for you to be able to look at, and that's the budget report. And then I'm going to use my superintendent time to do a presentation. We put together a presentation, Levy presentation. I'd like to come forward and do that presentation for you in the board and the community.
It's a 21-22 projections. Is that the name of the document?
Memo?
There's two. Okay.
There's two, I guess. Okay. Who's click? You're going to click for me? Okay. So just on the levy front, as everybody knows, our first measure did not pass, and so we've gone out to the voters, and the board has made the decision to lower the rates, and now we're going out and providing kind of new and different levy presentations. We did hold a thought exchange, which is an interactive survey with our community. I think we had over 1,200, maybe 1,500 people that went into that, and it allowed them to develop themes and then rate each other's themes. So it's kind of an interactive dialogue. A couple of things we learned from that. We know that we have some trust to rebuild with our community. That's one. We also know that we have, the community really wanted more information. They wanted more information about specifically the costs associated with the levy, but also what the levy supports and pays for. So the thought exchange, the feedback we got in the thought exchange is reflected in the presentation we put together. I did also put to you a draft levy flyer this is gonna be our mailer that you have in front of us. It'll be a lot bigger. That's just a condensed version of it that's gonna go to all of our families. If you have any, anything that you see might be a fatal flaw or any red flags there, let us know. We're in final development of that. There are a few other things we're modifying of that, but we'd love your feedback if you see anything related to that you think might be a fatal flaw. So can you go back to the first one and then just go. So this is our replacement levy, and this is facts. We're able to provide factual information as a school district, and that's what we're doing here. The vote is April 26th. Ballots should be dropping in mailboxes April 8th or April 9th. It's a 3-year educational programs and operations levy. Go. And again, stop there. So this is not a new tax. It replaces an expiring levy. So again, the school board listened, and we proposed a decreased rate, and we'll share information about what that decrease looks like in a bit. We also know that funds are essential for student programs and services that are not fully paid by the state, including student transportation. Go. And that it pays for extracurricular activities, including athletics, orchestra, band, choir, theater, more. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail later in the presentation to share some more information about that. So why now? Why go back out? And this is the conversation that the board had and I had with them is the February levy failure, if we didn't go back, we'd be in a situation where we'd have to make significant cuts to student programs. So going back out and trying to do a second try, if we pass it, allows us to not have to make those cuts. We've also revised the proposal with a lower rate, and we feel that it's an opportunity for us to engage and rebuild trust with our community, and we're going out and doing that in various different forms. And so one of the ways that we're going out to work with our community and get stakeholder feedback is through our strategic plan. So this is a draft of our new strategic plan, and we're going out and getting stakeholder feedback through that, and we're working hard to develop a plan that all of us can get involved with, that we can all be rowing in the same direction and put plans together that's going to make a big impact for our students. So we're excited about the plan. We've been going out and getting stakeholder feedback over the last couple of days. We have several more of these opportunities. Our board is going out and participating and actually presenting and listening side by side with our district staff. So who makes up Evergreen Public Schools? We're 23,000 students, 4,416 staff members, 38 schools. We have 95 languages spoken. 51% of students receive free and reduced lunch. And at any given time in our district, we have approximately 1,000 homeless students that are identified as homeless. And that's an interesting number because it's not, when you are identified as homeless, you have to be re-identified every single year. So that's a number that is not overinflated. So what is a school levy? This is one of the things that was part of the thought exchange that folks wanted to know the difference between a levy and a bond. And simply put, levies are for learning and bonds are for building. So our bonds pay for new construction, replacement of schools, building updates, and and you'll see the new and updated athletic facilities. That money can only be invested to pay for buildings. And so our levies are for learning, and levies fund educational programs and day-to-day operations of schools. So teachers and extra staff support, extracurricular activities, classroom textbooks, equipment, supplies, and student transportation are some of the things that the levy can pay for. So again, levies are for learning and bonds are for buildings. Bonds can only be used for capital or construction-related things. So what's at stake for our children? Again, the first measure failed. We have one more chance to do it this calendar year. If the levy does fail, the loss of the funds are 11% of our budget and would require us to significantly cut or eliminate programs that are important to our students. So that's what's at stake for us. Go ahead. And we have the types of programs and services that families depend on, such as health and safety, social emotional counseling, special education support for our English language learners, our highly capable students, smaller class sizes, and extracurricular activities, athletics, orchestra, band, choir, theater. We have one of the things that makes the choir program so fantastic and the music program so fantastic and the strings program so fantastic is that we have middle school teachers going down and teaching our elementary students, and we have a really nice pathway to be able to get to the level of excellence that we saw here today. And then it also pays for curriculum, textbooks, software, student transportation. And we'll go into each of these in a little more detail. So what's at stake? Health and safety, social emotional counseling, support staff, all of the, not all of though, but our levy funds help us augment and also provide more support to our students with special needs, interventions, safety and security personnel, counselors, social workers, nurses, all of those supports we use our levy funds to augment and to provide more of that for our students, which right now is critical as we move hopefully out of the pandemic. It will become endemic, and then we'll be moving more toward recovery. So what's also at stake are special education and English language support, highly capable programs, our smaller class sizes. We use our funds to, again, augment and support more robust programs than the state provides for us. What's also at stake are extracurricular activities, athletics, orchestra, band, choir, theater. We were able to add middle school soccer this past year, and levy funds support 100% of our athletics. Textbooks, software, curriculum are supported by our levy funds as well. And student transportation. We're not fully funded to transport our students from home to school, so we use some of our levy funds to do that. The most important use of the levy funds, though, is to provide bus transportation to and from athletic events, to and from extracurricular activities, concerts, state competitions, and so forth like that. And so our levy funds support those extra transportation trips that our students go to do the things beyond the school day. And this is interesting. Students participating in athletics and music, it's interesting to know the percentages of them. So 100% of our elementary students participate in music, which is absolutely outstanding. 28% of our secondary students are participating in music. And that's quite a high number. 40% of our students are participating in athletics and just at the secondary level. And our levy funds do support some elementary athletic participation as well, but not to the extent that it does for secondary. And then it's interesting to know the percentages of the programs in the various different programs that are supported by the levy. Transitional bilingual education, 17% of our students are new to learning the English language. We call them multilingual learners. 8% of our students are in the highly capable program, which is absolutely a phenomenal high number, something that we really should be proud of in this district. You don't see 8% of your 8.7, almost 9% of your students actually participating in a highly capable program is really a source of pride. And our levy funds really support that program to a very large extent. And then we have 14% of our students are in the special education program, students with special needs. And the state doesn't fully fund us for that, and we use that to support intervention and extra supports for them, behavioral specialists, psychologists, and all of those supports that our students with individual education programs have. So this is Olivia. Olivia is a senior at Union High School. She's going to Southern Oregon University, and she's wearing a Gonzaga sweatshirt. So somebody needs to get this girl a Southern Oregon University. But all of us had those programs in school that were meaningful to us and impactful for us. And for Olivia, it was athletics. And for me, it was athletics. For, I know, Rob, it might have been music. For others, it might have been a journalism class. But those extra things that our Levy supports for students to really feel part of the school community and that makes their school experience meaningful for them. And this is one of the things that we're responding to with the interactive thought exchange that we did was our community's desire for more information about the money part of the tax. So the proposed rate will lower our overall local school tax from what it was. You can see in 2018, $4.83 a thousand down to $3.48. So the $1.70 will bring it down to its lowest levels since recent memory. And there's a lot of information on this slide, but we're again responding to our community's desire to have more information and more detailed information about the levy funds. If you look at the levels of collections, they look like big numbers, but when you divide those into the 23,000 students that we have, they're numbers that are really proportional or less than our surrounding communities are asking for their EP&Os. And one of the important pieces to this, if you can see where it says levy equalization, in the Evergreen Public Schools, we get levy equalization. It's kind of like a state match. So next year, if the levy passed, the current year, we're getting $8.6 million from the state for levy equalization, and that's for districts that are more property poor. So districts like Bellevue and Seattle that have a lot of industry and high density of housing and other things they don't get levy equalization because they can get more money for less of a rate. And so the state recognizes that, and they'll be providing almost $23 million to Evergreen Public Schools over the next 3 years should the levy pass. And if the levy doesn't pass, those dollars don't get collected at all. And we think it's important that senior citizens and disabled folks have this information that for some individuals, there are exemptions to be had. And so we want to give this information to people in case they feel they could be eligible and they can contact the local Clark County government. Again, responding to our community's desire to have a little bit more detailed information, the levy is 11% of our budget. It's a $42.9 million collection. It represents 11%, and this levy equalization for next year is approximately $7 million. And again, that's the matching part that the state gives us if we pass the levy coming up. And this is Zach, and Zach is a senior at Evergreen High School. He's in the theater program. He's also a National Merit Scholarship finalist. And a National Merit Scholarship finalist, you have to be among the top individuals on the standardized test, the SAT. And he, like many of us, we said before, the thing that connected him to school and propelled him forward was his participation in the theater program. And the theater program, like the music programs and the athletic programs, are all supported by the levy dollars. And that's the presentation.
John, can you explain, because you'll probably say it in a better way than I can, the fact that it's not, the rate isn't just as important, but the actual amount that we go out for. It's not like it's just limitless, and if everybody's houses went up, a ton of money, we still are capped at how much we can collect.
The money that is collected is the amount that's on the ballot. The levy rate is an approximate number. It's an estimate based on the number of how much you're collecting and what you think your assessed values will do. And assessed values have been increasing, and people have been pointing that out. But the collection amount is going to stay same. So over time, that will lower their overall tax burden. But there's also some more pressure on people as their housing rises as well.
I think as we see on, so much of the commercial development and everything was on the west side of town. And so that, and also some pretty significant sized businesses in Camas, so their tax rate is lower because of that, because it's spread out over that commercial base. As we have more development on our side, and we've got more than we've had, and more coming, that should lessen the burden on the residential.
Yeah, and simply put, when your assessed values go up, your tax rate goes down. So, yes.
You can see evidence of that because when we passed the capital projects levy for technology, we estimated 50 cents, and now it's 43. So that's a reflection of the fixed dollar amount and how it spreads out. It's hard to explain because of the way that property taxes are computed, but it means that it won't be catastrophic. Right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go into our curriculum recommendations. Looks like Actively Learn the English Language Arts is up first. So last meeting, we got an explanation on the program. So this is coming back to the board meeting to see if there was any comments or questions that came up. Does anybody want another explanation or need us to go over the curriculum again? Any questions came up?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I think the adoption looks really good. I think the research is there, all of that. And I'm not saying this to impact this adoption, but I really want to see us have parents on that committee, because we've got all these empty spots. And I think part of it's COVID, people were just like not, getting together. But I really would like to see us communicate the need for parent participation on the instructional materials committee. So that's my only thought about it.
Noted.
Are we doing questions from the audience at all?
Yeah,
Is that next? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Vic. It's familiar. It's going to be familiar to the kids, and as they age into high school and so forth, to have the same approach to math. It's my hope that it'll stay as consistent as possible, because early on in my kids' education, their math curriculum changed, I think, twice in elementary school, and it was difficult for them to spin things back up. So I'm hoping you'll keep that in mind. But I'm satisfied with instructional math. I looked over some of the minutes from the IMC meeting and some of the questions that teachers had in their committee meetings about scaffolding this into the workshop model and so forth. And so it's easy to see that people are on top of that. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, and I did English, but Marlene is also here, so if we have any math-specific questions, we
Oh, you're in Actively Learn. Yeah, I saw the same similar comments, but I guess the IMC did that in a different order. Yeah, I like it.
Well, the other thing it does that I like, it feels like we're in alignment with what the direction we're heading with our strategic plan, and having that through thread through the plan for what we're trying to do, and that everything is connected. And so I feel comfortable about that as well.
From our last workshop, when we mentioned the the need to have parents on the instructional curriculum committee. There has been some work done to try to identify parents that are interested in joining that. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Yay.
Good.
Good, that's
Well,
awesome.
we're well on our way.
Good.
You were heard.
I'm a nag till somebody tells me otherwise.
Ask and you shall receive. Okay, I kind of did that. I think we were supposed to go for vote first before we started opening it up for questions, but.
You need a motion to adopt, to advance the second reading? So moved.
Second.
Okay, now we,
Do you want to ask questions from
questions from the audience, yes. Is there any questions from the audience about the curriculum adoption or the presentation? Any online?
Would it be helpful to do a quick, like, 30-second
If you would like.
reminder? I
yeah.
don't know if we have the same people, but just, so what we're moving to do is, this is an online platform that provides access to content, so poems, novels, nonfiction resources, units of instruction for all 4 high school grade levels. It also provides instructional tools, scaffolding tools, tools for differentiation such as annotations. Students can basically read what each other student writes and respond to them with the direction of the teacher. One of the things we've appreciated about Actively Learn as a partner, and we've been partnered with them for 4 years, is that they're responsive to our requests for content. So we give them a lot of feedback from our teachers for content that moves us beyond kind of the canonical approach for English around some of the typical novels and things that we, probably all of us in this room, experienced in high school English, but getting to more diverse content for our kids. The other piece too that I would mention is it's in use, teachers like using it, and it may allow us, if we have the budget flexibility, to look at, to your point about kind of a K-12 coherence, building up the classroom libraries at the high school, which right now the teachers are very creative and have to kind of scrounge and pull things together for their classrooms. This would provide online content, but we could also perhaps look at purchasing some classroom library materials that would also be in alignment with our equity vision for our kids so that they have diverse texts from multiple perspectives that they would be engaging in their analysis and in their writing. So this is the specific proposal for adoption, but I'd love to be able to kind of move towards that goal in the near future too. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
It looks like we do actually have one question from the audience. If you don't mind actually coming forward to the podium so that the audience on Zoom can hear you as well.
Hello, my name is Randy Schmidt, and I look at this and I don't think I can see all of it, so maybe some more of this below answers the question. But when I read this, I see that it focuses more on equity than potentially quality of education to the children. So it'd be interesting to know how a focus on equity actually increases the learning of the children versus the focus on actually learning ELA.
I guess I don't see that difference. I think Actively Learn, as with any English curriculum, is built on a backbone of standards, so our Common Core state standards is what it's based on. I think we believe through our equity vision that any child of our community should be able to see themselves reflected in the literature that they read, as well as other perspectives, and the analysis of those perspectives is how we broaden their understanding of the world around them. So that has always been, to me, when I taught English, that's what English is about. So it's inextricably linked with the content standards, which actually does provide some articulation of perspectives. There is actually a Common Core standard that talks about, both in social studies and in English, that our kids should encounter multiple perspectives, the perspectives that live in the world around them and in the communities that they come from.
That Actively Learn website's available for anybody to take a peek at, right? Yeah.
Well, and then the other, I mean, with using these platforms, it also helps with being able to use Spanish and other languages for our students that struggle reading the English word. I think that it is with an equity emphasis, but it doesn't mean that it's jeopardizing our already core standards of learning and that we've always held very strong within this district. That's always been our emphasis. That's why we're here. But this is more of just using other lenses and providing additional supports for our students. And I appreciate your answer for that. Thank you.
Really, I really agree. And when my oldest, who's now 26 or so, started at Union in the 9th grade with Randy Cates' honors English class, the one comforting thing that they had for the students was a book list rather than specific books, so that they could choose. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this as kind of an online expression of that. There will be a book list, and parents can go over that with their kids. And if the parent is excited about a piece of literature and says, go choose that, the student will be excited, I think, at least be curious. And so the way that I perceive equity in this program is that it includes everybody in this curriculum. It really does include everybody, and everybody will be able to see themselves. And I don't see a subtraction of that. I don't see a detriment to any single student.
I agree. I feel like in the United States, we're such an incredible country of different cultures and different experiences, and for our kids to have that rich access to this kind of literature and to understand different people's points of view, understand different families, different communities, all those things that help them learn to be a good citizen in our community and to be critical thinkers. And just, I know my own enjoyment in reading, if I only read the same thing that was the same genre, the same perspective over and over again, how far would I get? You know, it just feels like expanding the horizons is what we need to be doing. And I really like the fact that this gives them that richer experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our first and our second. All those in favor to move this forward to a second reading?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving forward to our second reading. And now we have our illustrative math. I want to say illustrate. I need to get that right.
No, you're fine. You're just fine.
Did you have a presentation you wanted to give us as well, or I don't want to cut you off?
A little bit. Again, we are asking for our pilot committee piloted 2 curriculums, and after lots of data research, came to the unanimous conclusion that we wanted to move forward with the adoption of illustrative math. And the main reasons around the need for the adoption were just the changes in our system over the past 5 to 7 years. We've really changed our student population and just our understanding of how students learn best with math, and realizing that the current curriculum that we have does not meet all of the needs of all of our learners and teachers as well. Curriculum that's in both English and Spanish, curriculum that is able to pivot easily between digital and in person was a big one that we've learned the past couple years, which is important. Curriculum that addresses our rigorous Common Core state standards and is coherent. So another perk about illustrative math is that we already have it adopted in our 6th through 12th. We have it 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. So this would provide a very coherent system in vocabulary and structures and routines and models that are used, especially in those pivotal years of 5th to 6th grade transition, and then thinking like middle school to high school. It would be so much more seamless. And so I'm trying to think if there were any other big, and then obviously the culturally responsive pedagogy that this is built upon allows students to really see themselves in the curriculum and then have opportunities to see other experiences, which is just giving them such a richer mathematics experience, to see math in their world and that they are mathematicians that bring funds of knowledge They're not there to learn one way, that there are multiple ways to represent mathematics and be a mathematician. So we're excited about it. Any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer.
I just have a comment. I've been going out and talking to principals, and I think I've gotten through about 2/3 of all of our 38 schools. And inevitably, up and down the system, our principals are really excited to have illustrative math. And they're very excited to have a curriculum that can be predictable, that we can use over time, that we could provide professional learning up and down the system for. So I can tell you, if our leaders are excited, it bodes well for us to be able to do this in a real positive and good way.
Yeah, thank you. So excited.
What I loved about when I was looking at this is I was never like the math person, ever. But what I love about this is it shows kids how to apply math, how to make it relevant to their lives. Because you hear a lot of kids saying, I'll never use such and such after here. But that is not true. And being able to think more critically about how we're using mathematics and really be excited about it, I think is really key here. So I'm happy about it.
Any other questions from the board?
I think I said all that I was going to about this in the last one.
Yeah, and I heard your point about the workshop model and just making sure that it's really clear to teachers and leaders that this works beautifully within the workshop model. It is the workshop model. It really is about just launching a task and then facilitating instruction versus direct modeling. So yeah, I think it will work beautifully. We're already working on a framework to really help explain that with the workshop vocabulary merged with Illustrative Math, and Pam Habersetzer, who's the secondary math TOSA, we work really closely together. We're trying to make it kind of a K-12 math program versus disjointed, so.
Thank you both for leading through both of these processes. I know they're not easy, they're a long haul, but thank you for getting to the promised land for our staff. I think they're really excited, and it fits in nicely with our desire to improve our test scores, to improve our experiences for students, and to have more predictability in terms of what we're teaching. So thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any questions from the audience on the math curriculum? Anything online?
We have somebody.
Gary's.
Thank you. I know with teaching my daughter, giving her a whole bunch of different ways to do math really is confusing to her. And I think maybe you're giving them too much. And, sorry, I was very good at math, and just adding down just always worked, and you carry over, and, it's just seems really straightforward. I think sometimes we try to throw too much at the kids, and it just confuses them. So really, if you could just keep it simple. I'm not going to use that other word with that statement, but thanks. Because I know we need it with 20.5% of the kids meeting standards in math for this district is, sad. So thanks.
You have to do better, yeah.
And that is our goal, to always do better and to make sure we're meeting our kids where they are instead of trying to fit them into a box. We're trying to make that box surround them and get them those learning avenues. So thank you.
Can I answer? Can I?
Please do.
I agree that kids should not have to know multiple or many strategies. I think the difference in the understanding there is, instead of only one way being taught, students bring what makes sense to them. So Common Core standards, really what you want is, math practice number one is making sense of the problem. And my experience with math, I was a really good mathematician until all of a sudden I wasn't. And I kind of ran out because the math just didn't make sense at a certain point. And so what we're really striving for, and we're not there yet, but what we're really striving for and we're hoping that this curriculum will do is help us to make mathematicians in our district that are always thinking, does this make sense to me? And if it doesn't make sense, I need to make it make sense. So yes, I think they don't need to know a bunch of things that don't make sense to them. They just need to know one way that makes sense. And if that is an up and down, that's great. But that's not going to be great for everybody. And so I think that's the shift, is the making sense is a big component of that.
I think that was a perfect way to describe it, because I read something somewhere that said that most people, they go through math, they go through high school math and all that, some take college math, but when you think about it, the highest level of math that you might know is 8th grade.
Yes.
Because after 8th grade, it starts to lose you because those concepts weren't put in place early on, because we just wrote down our numbers and we did our
Yeah, we were like human
arithmetic
calculators.
and and multiplication tables and all of that. But then when we got to the point where after 8th grade, it was like, oh, we got through it, but none of it made sense because we didn't have that foundational concepts. And if we can teach our kids those and build those blocks all the way up through it, we will have so much more success rate with our kids really understanding what they're learning.
Yeah, I was taught new math. New math? I got set theory in kindergarten, how's that? But we were also taught after 2nd grade, arithmetic. It was arithmetic until it was algebra, and the two didn't cohere for us. And for me, I lost track of everything with Taylor series in college, and it really hurt. So you need it. You need that math sense and the number sense and the algorithmic training to get it there. And I like the way that illustrative math, I'm working on it too,
You got it.
differs from my daughter's early experience in elementary school, because they too had the 12 different ways to do it and pick one, and they didn't know which one to pick.
Right. Yeah,
And-
it just doesn't make sense. The one thing also that I really am excited about with this, having an adoption of a math curriculum that everyone is using, Illustrative Math has some really great family communication components. So with each unit, a letter goes home to the families that talks about the big ideas of the unit, but also has like, here's some questions, some mathy things you can do at home that aren't sitting and doing problems, but like when you're at the grocery store, add up, like just real life application of the math they're learning in school. So I think that will be really a really needed part that we are missing right now, is that family communication part.
Remember when my son started middle school, I had to buy a math book. There was a book for parents.
Yes.
Although I don't think he ever let me have
I already
it.
did this. Why do I have to do this again?
COVID, I did have to learn 8th grade algebra again. Don't want to do that ever again.
Relearn calculus for my seniors. I know the experience. It was.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. We need a motion to move this forward for a second reading.
I move that we. Let's see. Let me get this right. I move that we bring the curriculum recommendation forward for adoption at second reading, titled Illustrative Math.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next is our teaching and learning update. I believe Assistant Superintendent Rebecca Miner is going to provide us with that update. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back this evening. Superintendent Boyd, members of the board. I have, I don't know how many, I should do the math on this, how many greater percentages than I did last time I was here when I had 2 days of experience, and now I'm sitting at 12. So it's a pleasure to be back. And I will just say, an immediate noticing for me is the amazing team that I get to work with here in Evergreen. It's really been a pleasure to be serving with people who are dedicated to students and staff and to results for students. So I just have 4 brief updates for you tonight. You telegraphed one of them already, so I'll start with that one. We are working very hard to get new members for our instructional materials committee, some parent members. Information has gone out to principals. We've translated that into Spanish and Russian, and we're really working hard to get some new members on that committee. If there's anyone out there listening, form is available from your principals or from John Boyd's office here at the district office, and we would love to get those applications in. So that's something that our directors and our principals have been working on. Next, I just wanted to share that this week, teams of 2 of us are going out and conducting an multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, assessment survey in each building in the district. And each one of those surveys will take about 2 hours. We'll be sitting down with leadership teams in the building. It might be the principal, might include a counselor, et cetera, to talk with them about a variety of systems they have in place. This is just a moment in time to see where we are with our ability to implement MTSS and those multi-tiered systems of support for students. And then we'll take that data and we'll be able to move the system forward. So we're very excited to get that initial look at that. And we're excited to go out in our teams of 2 and get that information. Another data point this week, the Healthy Youth Survey data is being released from the state. The Healthy Youth Survey, as you may know, is done biannually, and it's done in cohorts, so that it's done in 6, 8, 10, and 12. So the same students who are tested when they're 6th graders, not tested, who are surveyed when they're 6th graders are surveyed again as 8th graders. It gives us a lot of data as a state. We can see how mental health trends are going with students. We could see, I mean, a couple of years ago, I remember vaping just popped incredibly, right? It hadn't been a thing before that. We could see the impacts of marijuana legislation in the state of Washington. So we're really looking forward to being able to dig into that data. We get it at both the Evergreen level and then at the school level, as well as at the ESD level. So there's multi-tiered systems that can be looking at how we can support students. You may see that show up in a school improvement plan next year as a school is thinking about what do our students need, what's different about what our students need than what another school's students may need. And then we can look at it as a district and then as a region as well. So very helpful information. We're just beginning to dig into that. And my final update tonight is that our teaching, learning, and equity team will be reading Michael Fullen's book, Coherence. I think all of us have read it at one point in time, but I think most of the team are like me, much of what we read pre-COVID has fallen off in favor of acquiring masks and remote learning and all of those things. So we're looking forward to diving back into that book. Michael Fullen in that book introduces 4 key drivers, which are really key for systems level work. And so much of what I've heard tonight in this meeting just echoes those drivers. So I'm excited to get back into his work. It's to cultivate collaborative cultures as a system, to deepen learning, to secure accountability, and to focus direction. So I think it'll be a perfect launching off point as we have completed the information gathering from the strategic plan for us to be able to go then and take that work forward in a very coherent manner. Any questions for me tonight?
Welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to have you with us.
Thank you. Glad to
We'll be happy to get the copies of the book Coherence if you like it. Yes. It's kind of an academic, intense thing. When Rebecca brought up she was taking it to TL, I got back in my book, and now I'm making marks, so I'm not behind the 8 ball on it. But it's really interesting, good work that will help us think about how we actually align our work to our strategic roadmap in a coherent way. So I've been digging in, and it's a good read.
The work you're doing with MTSS, I've been exposed to the, I guess, systems of support models at each of these schools, and it seems like many of the elements are already there. Is that something that you perceive?
Well, that's what we're going out to find out.
Okay.
And it'll be them reporting on where they feel like the elements are, to see how aligned we are as a system, to see whether we have places where we are much further along in implementation or not. So that's the data we'll be gathering.
All right, looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, equity and inclusion update, Clarissa Hightower. Oh, Jamila. Okay, Jamila, welcome.
Good to see everybody. I'm going to put my laptop up here. Hopefully you can still see my face.
We're so happy to see your face.
Good evening. I'm back. I feel like the last time I was here, you were working on the OE, and so I wanted to do the updates connected to that. And so first, related to one of the bullets in the OE around how we provide a curriculum that includes instructional materials reflective of the diversities, experiences, and needs of our district students. We are working to increase cultural competence across our district. And so one of the strategies we're leveraging is promoting awareness of the diverse cultures and creating an environment for all of the cultures that are present in our community to be celebrated. We provide Heritage Month resources, and so our department is continuing to do that monthly so that we can make sure that our teachers can have supplemental resources that are culturally responsive and connected to each Heritage Month each month. In addition to curriculum and instructional supports, I think Covington, Jamie Johnson came earlier to talk about hip prevention curriculum that they were piloting at Cascade to respond to students with who are experiencing harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and just some of the conflicts that were happening with our students as we come back from being so disconnected during the pandemic. And so we had a curriculum that we piloted at Cascade. It's continuing now at Pacific, Frontier, and so we're wrapping up with implementation with most of our middle schools, seeking feedback on what we might want to support continuing so that we can continue to promote some supplemental materials around maintaining community in our environment. In addition, there's another OE area that I wanted to talk about, which is supporting the learning environments, where teachers, staff, and administrators are working to counter and eliminate the impacts of racism, discrimination, trauma, bias, and unconscious bias in interactions between students and how that directly impacts students. And so our SEL team has built out resources around restorative practices and has provided a restorative practices module on Canvas. And so the Canvas module resources are available to all teachers so that if they want to have this on-demand resource, because we don't always have time to do the PD, and so we want to make sure that they have ways to get access. So we're using Canvas for that so that they can get access to that. And I think we definitely believe that it's important to provide that direct-to-school support. I think our teachers creating these supplemental resources, it's difficult, I think, in terms of the time, and so our team really strives to just provide more resources so our teachers and students have strong learning partnerships and that the learning environment can be productive and that students can really maximize achievement because conflict is lower, community is being restored, and they have a really productive learning experience. And then lastly, to speak to some of what Rebecca was just speaking on, I think we are really working to build a collaborative culture across TLE. We have a couple dozen staff members who meet monthly to build interdependence. And we've been working to focus the staff around 3 key pillars of connection, calibration, and reestablishing how we shift our practices. And so our hope, as for example, Marlena and Michael were just up here talking about adopting curriculums. They're part of those gatherings, and our work is to make sure that we're centering equity in our work together, and that equity isn't a silo, it's not a department, but it's actually something that we are all working on across and calibrating in all of our frameworks and our work. And I think, as you can see, as evidenced in what they're already sharing, that's starting to really come to life in our district, and it's starting to become really coherent in what we're doing. And so I said the last thing, but now this is the last thing. We do have Jamal McKenzie, who started with us in February. He's our community engagement coordinator. And in addition to the supports we're providing in the classroom level, we're trying to figure out how we build stronger community partnerships. And so Jamal's job right now is to start finding additional resources to support our family resource centers, to partner with our family liaisons, and make sure that we're building and reaching out into our community and pulling those resources in to Evergreen to support our students and families. And so, for example, he's working with neighborhood associations right now to address some of the pedestrian safety challenges that are happening in some of our school areas. And so he's trying to build relationships with those neighborhood associations so they can help to support advocacy. So that's it. Any questions?
You guys are busy.
Beautiful news. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now we go to our good news report. Craig, give us the good news. doesn't always work.
Sadly, at my height, that will block my face, but that'll just help out. That's good for everybody. Well, thank you for this time. Of course, this is always enjoyable to share our good news. I'm going to start with, in the beginning of the month, we kicked off March with Read Across America Week. And of course, in our school district, pre-COVID, we've been able to celebrate with beaches, restaurant, providing a hot breakfast to all our first graders. We weren't able to do that this year, but we still provided a celebration for all our first graders. Beaches Restaurant still partnered with us, and they provided us with a take-home breakfast. And our Evergreen School District Foundation, with help from AmeriGroup, a book sponsor this year, again provided a book for every single first grader. And so we shared some pictures. These are Emerald Elementary School first graders, just saying thank you to everyone and celebrating their love of reading, which is what this week is all about. We thought a great way to kind of share a reading celebration was to share this awesome story from Columbia Valley Elementary School, where librarian Beth Petrie and teacher Shai Shira, they partnered up to launch a project that is called Reading Buddies. And while they launched it, the students are doing the work. And what we have here is 4th and 5th graders are partnered with 1st and 2nd graders that might be struggling a little bit with reading. And the 4th and 5th graders, they meet in the library and on their own, there's teachers present, but the older student kind of coaches the younger student. Sometimes they just read to each other, but it was great to experience this because you could see that one young lady right there. They are really teaching. They got they sat in with lessons from Shai Shira and Beth Petrie and gave them ideas on how to help these kids. So they're sitting there and saying, well, why don't you try to make the sound with your mouth? And they'll do that. So I encourage you to watch this story. It will warm your heart to watch 5th graders helping younger kids. And the other thing is it's made bonds within these students. So now in the halls, the older kids and the younger kids are saying hi and fist bumping. So it's overall a great experience. It's the first year they're doing it, but they're no doubt going to do it next year and hopefully expand it. I want you to meet Ollie from Orchards. Now, Orchards Elementary School has had the All-Star as their mascot, but they decided it was time to name the All-Star. So this was a kids' vote, and they came up with Ollie the All-Star, and which is cute. They actually have, as you could see, an actual all-star suit that I've seen teachers in, principals in, and students in. And the idea to share this was they've put the all-star in many different places in the school, like behind the fish tank was one, where some of the younger kids thought it was actually in the fish tank, but it was behind the fish tank. And in they've partnered with businesses in the community, and they've put up the all-star there. And students and families, when they find it, they take pictures, and then they share their stories, and you can see that in the bulletin board. So it's a fun way to get students to write about their experience, and also obviously a school bonding experience. And now the All-Star's got a cool name, Ollie, so there you go. We talked a lot about the importance of theater and music and extracurricular activities for students. Heritage High School, a very cool event on March 10th. They performed The Wizard of Oz in ASL, American Sign Language. So we do have a story that you can watch with the students preparing for this performance that went on March 10th, and it was open to the public. So that was very cool. We have expanded our technology in video services where we're able to live stream more events. And so our video service team, Matt and Wade, have been doing that more. And one example was Union High School. They had a virtual assembly for Black History Month, and that was available for the school online and live, and then recorded for people to play back. So we're excited about that. Of course, March 14th to March 19th was Education Support Professionals Week. We always want to thank all our education support professionals, our secretaries, our playground people, and Burton Elementary School, the kids, they put together a card that they created themselves, a thank you card that they presented to the people that support them every day at Burton Elementary School. We kind of went around the district, took some pictures of some of our school heroes, and including Connie, who, if you've come into our building in the front, you can now see her smiling face. We have a lot of other celebrations, not just the wonderful chorus that we heard here. Heritage High School also had state qualifiers for their choir, so it's cool to see that many of our high schools were successful when it comes to choir. And of course, last meeting we celebrated the Evergreen Awards, so wanted to share some of those pictures of Alex Shiwi, Krista Wade, and Margaret Barker, who were honored last time here at the meeting. So, any questions there? Awesome. Thank you for your time. I'll try to disconnect without breaking anything.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Any comments by the school board?
Really good news. It's good to see these in-person events returning and smiles on folks' faces.
Next agenda item, comments, school board comments?
Well, I know that Victoria and I each had a chance to do the strategic plan presentation. It went well. We did a virtual one last week, and then I was at Image last night, and
I was at Emerald.
so
Yeah, it was, it's interesting. Doing two of them, you just learn something new each time. It's been gratifying to hear the input that we're getting from the community, and we're just adding that more and more of that information into making our strategic plan the best that it can be, and people get really engaged with it. So that's good.
I was at Emerald with Victoria last night, and it was really well attended, and the questions were very substantive, and they really wanted to connect the strategic plan to the student experience, and that was expressed in so many different ways. So it was good to attend and be able to talk to the folks.
I think it's just nice to be out there and be able to get, people add questions and just be able to listen to people out in our community.
Yeah.
I'll be attending there's one tomorrow night, and I'll be at Marion with John.
I'll be at the one at Evergreen High School.
Anybody else have any board comments?
Trying to look at my calendar so that I capture all of it. I guess the audit entrance took place on the 8th. We already talked about that in the last meeting. It was good to be able to attend that, and actually created a new understanding about the finances for me that I didn't have before. And just that new understanding turned into an ability to see the budget in much more detail. It was really good. I've also participated in the development and execution of the thought exchange, and have not moderated any of the comments, as I promised. But the data that's coming out of that is really rich and meaningfully informative. It's something that really paid off, offering that simple question to folks.
I like that too. I think it's really a neat, and you talked about that for quite a while, and I think I really like to see the comments, and I think it's something we should use regularly on different issues so that we have ways to communicate with each other and for people to comment on things. As the more and more comments come in, they can interact. I like that.
Yeah, it was the first time I've used the tool, and I was very impressed with the interactive part with people. It's actually not just a static thing where people can engage with other people's comments, and we can develop themes that build on each other for us to be able to respond to our community. So I thought it was very useful. And Rob was on the planning team. We have a debrief with Thought Exchange, Eric at Thought Exchange to talk about next steps with this tool. So we'll debrief how it went and then decide how to move forward with that. It's good to know that the board saw utility in that as well.
And I think it would be really interesting to do that on a student level, to have students answer a questionnaire. Yeah.
That's a great point. I mean, there's so many applications with students, with principals, with teachers, with classified staff, for example, and with the whole community. It seems like there are a lot of different ways that we can use to engage in that two-way dialogue. It kind of does create a two-way dialogue for us, I think.
What was the other one? The rest of it is legislative oriented, so I'll talk about it in the workshop.
All right, future agenda items?
I had one and now I have a senior moment.
I have one, well, Vic figures it out. I have them too, I do.
Oh, I thought you said. I was like, there's a hand on my shoulder. Sorry, Larry,
Right.
scared me.
Are we doing board comments, right?
No, we're done with board comments. We just did them.
Oh, future agenda items, I'm sorry.
Agenda items. Yeah, no, sorry. I was distracted by the fingers that all of a sudden showed up on my shoulder that I didn't know she was next to me.
It's, with respect to our land acknowledgement, I actually ended up in a coincidental conversation with Karen Kamroff of the Cowlitz tribe. She works in governance there. And what the Native Americans who lived and worked here called themselves. And there is an opportunity to improve that with her consultation, which she's volunteered to give. So I'm hoping that we can schedule a workshop around it where Cowlitz can come and give their input about things.
I think that would be good. One of the things that came up when I had a meeting with Jacqueline is that she would like to get more information on our STEM, the building and everything. I know it's getting ready, but kind of where we are, maybe just some highlights. We kind of went through a lot of that pretty fast. Things have kind of shifted a little bit, or not shifted, but changed when we redid the MOU. So I just maybe an update on where we are with that program.
Yeah, we'll plan on bringing that over either the next meeting or the following meeting. We'll be ready to do a workshop with you probably around that.
Okay.
That's the
one
skilled
on
trades?
Evergreen.
Yeah,
The STEM.
the old
STEM
legacy.
trades.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the one that they're, the STEM,
The donated building,
the building, the donated
Oh,
building.
the trades program.
Yes.
yeah. Because
Building trades program.
Is that
there's a
not the
STEM program going into the old legacy high school portables.
Accelerator.
STEM Accelerated?
STEM Accelerator, yeah.
Yeah, we'll
there
provide
was-
an update with you. I had planned an update on the Friday update and then a workshop over the next couple of weeks. So we'll get to that for sure.
Was it also the STEM and the building? Do you want updates on both of them? Yeah, as much as we can.
We'll get it all.
Give in. I'm always a cheerleader for our math and to construct programs, so I kind of went a little overboard in my descriptions for Jacqueline today. Okay. Any other agenda items? No? Okay. At this time, we're going to go ahead into our citizens' comments. So as citizens who wish to address the board about an item not on the meeting's agenda, you can do so during this time. As long as the comments are not personnel related or about an individual employee or student and are not legal in nature, you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Comments are to be directed to the board of directors as a whole and may not be addressed to any individual member of the board, administrative staff, or the audience. As well, just a refresher, the board is not actually able to interact. We can ask you clarifying questions, but we're not able to engage in a conversation during this time. The first one we have on our list is Charlene Williams. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Charlene Williams, Dr. Williams. I'm an educator in a neighboring school district. But tonight I'm here as a mom. I have 2 daughters who graduated from Evergreen Schools, Heritage High School, and they would be here tonight, but I'm here to read the words to encourage you to continue in the great work you're doing as leaders supporting equity in your schools, the work that we are seeing in the curriculum and all the wonderful things that we are hearing reported tonight. It truly matters. And I'm gonna give you a little bit of why from an essay my daughter did, I believe in Ms. Hab's classroom in Heritage High School. Don't turn off the lights. You won't be able to see Nalia because she's too dark. This was just one of the ways that my 3rd grade peers would taunt me because of the color of my skin. Until I learned other ways to deal with it, I became the master of rude comebacks, but still had all of the hurt and pain that the words brought me. They broke down my spirit and the confidence that was once built so high because of my family. I had always been told how beautiful I was from people in my church, random strangers, and especially my family. I never knew that I was different. All of the people around me looked like me. Then in the middle of the 2nd grade year, my family moved into a large 2-story house in a new neighborhood. The following school year, I was enrolled in a nearby elementary school. As the first day approached, I became more and more nervous, but I knew that my new school supplies and clothes, that everything would be all right. As I waited outside the door of Miss Alexander's 3rd grade classroom, I was surrounded by unfamiliar faces except for my mother. In that classroom, I tried to introduce myself, but I realized that many of my fellow classmates were avoiding me. A confused little 3rd grader, I wanted to know why. What was wrong with me? Later, I discovered it was because I was different. I was the only African American in my class throughout my elementary school, and I was teased. I had my kinky black hair felt all over, new unwanted nicknames, and a newly found hatred towards myself and my dark brown skin. The beautiful girl that I thought I was now being called ugly and weird. If I could tell my 3rd grade self something, it would be that it doesn't get better. You have to find the strength within yourself to ignore the ignorance of others throughout your whole life. You will be told that you're this and that you're that, but the only opinion that matters is your own. Know that you are beautiful. So since I only have a few more seconds, I'll just submit this for your completion in reading. But know that they are doing well. One is an architect working on the project at Heritage, helping them complete that process. She's also mentoring middle school students at Frontier Middle School. And the youngest is a paid performer who sang with Karn, but is also now working in STEM programs and supporting youth during the day. So please continue this important work, and I'm happy to assist as a member of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, and thank your daughter for sharing her essay. Thank you. Okay, next on the list is Randy Schmidt. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for letting me speak. So we heard today about the levy, the 11% levy that's moving forward. And I think that this board might have misunderstood the message the community gave when the last levy didn't pass 2 months ago. And that primarily was, if you read the message against the levy that was in the ballot itself, was that we're looking for the schools to be better. Your schools have not a high percentage of kids that are at their grade level for reading and arithmetic. That's your primary job. And so therefore, what we're looking at is, you need to be better before we throw more money at it. So it doesn't matter if it's 11% or 3% or 1%. We're looking at not passing these levies until you improve your performance. My wife is an educator. She's a secondary math teacher. She does an excellent job of teaching her kids. She does not do it as part of Evergreen District because she can't teach in Evergreen District what she teaches at home, which teaches kids and brings them to that level. She's got 7 kids in a short amount of time that have got 5s on the AP test for mathematics. And so therefore, that's what we're looking for. So we're actively campaigning against your levies in the community until your scores for these things improve. That's what we're looking for. It's not animus, it's we share the desire for our kids to have strong learning through their elementary and secondary school. And if they're not getting that, if you're failing, we need another option. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can you explain to us what makes not having the levy gives us a better chance at doing a better job with our kids?
I'm in business. If my business had the performance that your schools do, we would fail. We wouldn't have any money and any employees. And so only in government can we continue to give you more when you're failing. And if you're failing more, give you more because you need more and you need more and you need more because you're not getting the goal. At some point, you have a huge amount of dollars you have per student. You've also, by your own math, have lost more than 11% of your own student body this last 2 years. You don't need 11% more money. You need to be efficient with what you have and learn to do the job of teaching the basics to get these kids successful in their communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Gary Wilson. Hi, Gary.
Hi, thank you. The first half of this comment is from Clark County Finance Director Mark Gassaway, who spoke at the last board meeting but could not be here tonight. Quote, I received a copy of the levy fact sheet for the 3-year EPO levy, and I'm very disappointed. Why can't the school board be honest with taxpayers? The first check mark says not a tax increase. This statement is false. This levy will increase property taxes for individual homeowners and raise millions of new tax revenues. In the first year of the levy, taxpayers can expect their EPO tax assessment to increase 11%. Over 3 years, the tax assessment will increase approximately 24%. It's simple math. 2 variables, levy rate and assessed values. Hold the levy rate constant, increase assessed values, and property taxes increase. It's that simple. What does the fact sheet not say? Taxes will increase, assessed values will have increased 42% since 2018. What does the fact sheet not say? The levy request is asking for increased revenue of $5.8 million in the first year and $25 million over 3 years. What does the fact sheet not say? Since the last levy was passed, student enrollment has declined by 4,000 students. What does the fact sheet not say? Why the school district needs an additional $25 million in revenue with fewer students. What does the fact sheet not say? What will this new money be used for, and why is more money needed? What is the plan? Since you're not being honest with the taxpayers when this tax increase does not pass, you can't explain it to the students why the EPO programs are being cut. Okay. Then I'll add my comments. I'm looking more at the current levy operating results, and I know I've shared this before, but I'm not afraid to keep coming back and sharing it till we see improvement. Per OSPI, far less than half of ESD students met standards for English, 39.2%, science, 45.5%, and math, 20.5%. After I spoke last month about the poor percentage of students meeting standards, Rob came over to me, and when I mentioned to him that since 2015, the percent of students meeting standards has dropped, and since 2018, it's dropped dramatically, at that, Rob brought up that testing has changed and is harder, which, sorry, that's an excuse. It's not what parents want to hear. In Camas, right next door, 70% of the students meeting English standards, 73% meeting science standards, and 54.5% meeting math standards. Granted, that's not great, but I think we can do the math and see that over half in Camas at least are meeting standards at math, where here it's 1 out of 5. So what's Camas doing that we're not? That should be of interest to you. But you did change the subject and proudly added that Evergreen has a 93% graduation rate. At that, I said, yeah, that just tells me you're just moving kids along. They're not learning. The numbers are there. They don't lie. So you give them a diploma, what is it really worth? Can they do math? Can they communicate well? English, can they write? You know, that's what they need to do in their future. Thank you. Oh, and I just wanted to drop off some documents that we had sent out to each of the board members. Some came back for Rob, so we had an incorrect address, so yeah.
Go ahead and hand those over to Lori. Thank you. Is there any online, Lori? Nope. Okay. All right. The time is 7:07, and we are going to go ahead and take a recess to sign documents, and then we will return for a workshop on inclusive, comprehensive sexual education curriculum, asset preservation update, school action and safe water plan, and a legislative update. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. And the first agenda item for our board workshop is the inclusive comprehensive sexual education. And we are going to hear a presentation from Crystal Wolf. Is that correct?
Yes, slight correction to the title. It's comprehensive sexual health education.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Wolf, and I am the Science and Health TOSA, and I'm here with Tilly and Clarissa. And the last time I was before the board, I was brand new in this role, and it was October 2020, and we were all on Zoom. So I'm glad to be here in 3D with you all. The last time we met, we were talking about, with comprehensive sexual health education, were we in alignment with our frequency and the topics and content as required by Senate Bill 5395. And since then, OSPI has really done a great job at fleshing out what that really means, and especially the part about inclusive of all students. And so I'm here today to update the board and to offer some things for consideration as we consider the needs of all of our students. I think as we talked about the operational expectation for equity, this really comes into alignment with our vision for that in our curriculum to serve all of our students. Item number 3 there, with providing students access to opportunities, resources, and support, they need to be successful, including all of these factors. So especially with sexual health education, we want to make sure that that is inclusive for all of our students. OSPI has put out a great guide to implementation, and from that guide, I've drafted a vision statement for our comprehensive focus there. And at EPS, we will provide inclusive, comprehensive sexual health education that is age-appropriate, scientifically accurate, affirms the identities of all students, and supports them in making healthy choices that serve them for a lifetime. We believe that young people should have the knowledge and skills necessary to develop a healthy sense of self, to know and understand their rights, to build healthy relationships, and to protect themselves from sexual violence, unintended pregnancy, and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV infection. Inclusive sexual health education that addresses the varied needs of each student can promote safe and supportive school environments that nurture respect and empathy, both in the classroom and in the community, so that our students can live fully empowered lives. So what I'd like to put before the board today is this guide to sexual health education implementation. I think it serves as a really great framework for our movement forward. It provides a lens into best practices for sexual health education, and it also helps us to identify gaps and opportunities in our curriculum as we think about, again, each student and an inclusive approach. It's also in alignment with our operational expectation for equity. One of the things that becomes clear when you read through that implementation guide is that we had some guidance around instructional language for human growth and development, and we need to sundown that. This policy, or this guidance, I should say, really steered away from mention of gender identity and gender expression with a focus on biology, and we now know that we need to be more inclusive. And so from that guide for implementation, I've drafted a 2-page document that outlines some of those best practices about creating a positive classroom culture, engaging our families, inclusive instruction, and more. We also should make sure that we have a shared and common understanding when we're talking about students and we're talking about the variety of gender identities and expressions in our community, and that we have a common language and a common understanding. And so these are some terms that come out of policy and out of state law, so we can all have that shared understanding of what we're really talking about when we talk about gender identity, expression, sexual orientation. A couple of best practices that I want to highlight from that guide to implementation. One thing we really want to do is carefully consider the pros and cons of separating classrooms by gender. We definitely need to make sure that we teach the same content, the same material with students of similar age. And when we have inclusive co-ed classrooms, it does provide some opportunities to affirm the diverse identities and experiences of all students, provides an opportunity to foster respect and healthy communication and allow students to hear a wide range of perspectives. One of the goals of our curriculum is to normalize conversations about sexual health, both between and among genders, and remove stigmas. And we also know that having a teacher who knows each student and is comfortable with the subject matter and can create a safe learning environment is much more important than having a teacher of the same gender teaching the lesson. We use the Flash curriculum here at Evergreen, and the elementary and middle school Flash curriculum was adopted in 2016. And at that time, there were certain lessons that were excluded from that adoption. And so one thing I want to put before the board is that opportunity to rectify that and to implement the full package of Flash lessons. The lessons that were not adopted tended to be about gender identity and expression. And so when we think from an inclusive standpoint, it makes sense to bring those back in and have that full package. So for elementary, that would be the gender roles lesson and the friendship lesson. And I believe the curriculum specialists have sent you some links if you'd like to preview that. In middle school, the lessons that were left out that I believe should be brought back in are on sexual orientation and gender identity. And there's also a lesson on condoms to prevent HIV and other STDs. So those are a couple of items for your consideration. When we look at our curriculum, we also know that historically in curricula in general for sexual health education, our LGBTQ students have often been left out of that curriculum. And so with many curricula that are available historically, they've been marginalized, sometimes even demonized in instruction. And so we want to make sure that we are in alignment with our operational expectations, that we are inclusive, and that we may need even to go further and have some supplemental curriculum that supports each student, including our LGBTQ students as well. A couple of updates about high school. I've worked with Kim Burhow and CTE to make sure that we have supplemental curriculum to add to our health and medical science classes in the high school level. And so again, that coherence from elementary to middle school to high school, Flash is the curriculum that we're using in all three levels. And you'll see that in high school this year, we've implemented the full package of Flash curriculum for high school. We're also hosting parent previews by classroom teachers and have updated all of the communication with parents to make them aware of those changes. And we have up in the spring coming up a second experience. So the new rules or the new laws have us have a comprehensive sexual health education twice. And that second experience is going to occur this spring for our 11th and 12th graders, and we're rolling out to buildings a couple of lessons on healthy relationships and consent and abuse. Those were the topics that in our survey we found the most interest in and need for our students, and so that's going to be coming out this spring. And in addition, we also have to remember that we have students that are not in the general education setting. And so comprehensive sexual health education also includes our special ed students. And in January, I created a slide deck and a video for our SPED staff and passed that off to Todd Karnowski and Matt Bennett. And the staff have completed their training. And I'm getting a lot of really great questions from teachers that are in that SPED setting about, they're just really thinking about the individual needs of each student. We know that oftentimes disabilities can increase a student's risk for sexual violence, for sexual abuse, and so having those supports in place and having those lessons is really important. I've been doing my best to communicate with the community. We have a teacher-facing webpage as well as a family-facing webpage. Last week was our spring family preview night. I had 120 families there. I have a Russian language session tomorrow night. And so we're doing a lot to just make sure that people have the facts about our curriculum and what it's about and what our goals are with that. So again, just for your consideration, that framework for inclusive sexual health education coming from OSPI, best practices, and carefully consideration whenever grouping students, especially by gender, getting our terminology in alignment with updated language, making sure that we understand what gender identity expression, sexual orientation actually means, and then also rectifying the elimination of certain lessons in Flash, bringing those back into the full complement of curriculum, and again, monitoring to see if we need additional supplemental curriculum as we try to meet the needs of each student to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a curiosity.
Yes.
How many parents did you say were at the
Last Wednesday was 120 families, and it was on Zoom because we weren't quite sure what it would be. And that's been pretty typical of my Zoom parent previews. I did 2 last year and 2 this year.
And how many, do you have an idea of how many parents opt their student out of the curriculum or parts of the curriculum?
That's part of the data collection I'm hoping to do this spring. Most of our elementary teachers teach the lessons in the spring when they know their students well. And so in June, I'm going to do some data collection on that. And I'm really curious to see, how many are opting out of the full curriculum? Is it specific lessons? They have that flexibility. Yeah.
And was the last night's meeting similar to what we've had in the past, or was there more engagement by parents?
The preview I just had last week?
Well, and just in years past, when we've had, because we've always had the ability for a parent to be able to observe read the curriculum and all of that. So there's a lot of conversation going on in the world right now.
There is.
About this, this type of curriculum. Are we seeing a different conversation about this, or is it pretty standard for what we've always had?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've only been in this role, this is my 2nd year. And I can say that the questions that I get are really varied, and it depends session to session. I wouldn't say that the session last week was really that much different. Again, parents are just concerned, and they want to know information. And so by providing that information, they can make the decision that's best for their family. Like I did have, for example, one parent last week who just really felt like this was the kind of instruction that should happen in the home, and that is absolutely a parent's right. And so, we provide a preview. Parents can see the lessons. The Flash curriculum offers a great homework assignment that really just promotes conversation between students and their parents so that they know what's going on in the classroom, and then they can families can add their own values and perspectives in at home. So again, like my recommendation to that parent was, do what's best for your family. There's an opt-out form, and this is what our curriculum is about, and these are the goals of it. But if you feel strongly that that is something you want to teach your kids, then that's absolutely okay. Yeah.
Oh, I'm having the senior moment, sorry. I had the question in my head, and then it did the...
How did they feel about the new sections that were being added back in, or added in?
We haven't added them back in yet.
No, but when you did the presentation, right?
So when I present on the curriculum, I say these are the adopted lessons that we have adopted, and these are the ones that we have not. Okay. So if you, for example, go to the King County webpage, you'll see the list of lessons. Just know that these are the ones we have implemented, and at this point, we have not.
Was there any feedback about that?
Yeah, there definitely are some parents who are really concerned about gender identity and expression. At the same time, we have trans kids, right? And those are a part of our community. And we also know that our students with varying identities and expressions experience more bullying. And it's something that we're already working on in that realm with the harassment and bullying. And so it, to me, makes sense to have the other positive side of supportive curriculum that helps promote respect, empathy, understanding.
Thank you.
And if I-
Yep.
It's the guidelines for instructional, gosh, what did you say? The old guidelines. The lessons that you're recommending we adopt, they haven't ever been a part of the CSE and Evergreen, have they?
So when we adopted the Flash curriculum in 2016, we intentionally left out certain lessons.
Right. Was that driven by our
Because
was that driven by this document?
No,
Guidelines for Instructional
this
Language?
document is brand new, or the language guidance document?
Yeah, did the language guidance document inform the proposal to not include the lessons that we're recommending here?
I don't recall which came first or if they were at the same time from my notes from the Canton Wine years. I would suspect that we didn't adopt those lessons because of community concerns about it being a controversial topic. And then that language was invented, the language guidance was invented to sort of clarify, here's what we talk about, here's what we don't talk about, in a sense.
The enrollment report that we send off to OSPI each year with the number of students in the racial groups and genders and so forth, there's category gender X, and it lists 23 of our 23,000. My sense is that the number of students claiming a non-binary gender is larger than that. Is that
Yes, I would, yes.
Can you offer a district-wide estimate about how off that number is?
No, I can't, but just as a former high school teacher, I can definitely speak to the experiences of students, and I had several students who were out to me and not their parents.
Right.
So, I would definitely say that number is underreported, for sure.
I appreciate that answer.
Yeah.
It was, okay. And then, those were the questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Next is asset preservation. Fun stuff. Come on up, Sue.
Can you pull that up on the? Yeah.
I'll just slide this.
Good evening. Now for some really exciting stuff, asset preservation. I'm Sue Steinbrenner. I'm the Director of Facilities here in Evergreen. I think Diana's going to pull up our asset preservation. We do this every year. Oh, there you go. Sorry.
I'll just switch sides with you and then you can have them.
Okay. We present our asset preservation scores every year. I don't know if you recall, back in the day, the asset preservation program replaced the 2% rule, which was that you had to put 2% of your general fund into maintaining your buildings. So the whole point of why it's important is to make sure that we are maintaining the taxpayers' investment in our facilities. We do the building condition assessment every year. Facilities, maintenance, IT all have input. Go out and look. We compare it against our capital renewal projects to see what roofs have been replaced. It's one of the many tools that we use to track our inventory and make sure that we're extending, in some cases, the life and maximizing the life cycle of all of our building components. In the link at the bottom is our scores by building, and we are in compliance with everything. As you may recall, every 6 years you're required by the state to have a certified assessor come out and review our scores. The last time we did that was in 2018 as part of the bond. That's one of the requirements of the study and survey. So everything, the 6-year certified evaluation is due in April of 2024. So, yeah, Victoria.
I just have a quick question on that. How much does it cost us to have to do that? Because I'm assuming that the state isn't paying for it the way they don't pay for the audits either.
Right. The state reimburses you for the study and survey. We got $50,000. It covered the cost of the assessments. We just did assessments at Cascadia Tech Center because we're ready to submit the long-range plan. And it was a little bit more, but because it's a smaller
you know, a smaller campus. When you do the whole, there's some economies of scale.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just
Oh,
the
go ahead.
comment that Pioneer is in really good shape for being as old as it is, according to this.
Yeah, if you look, and I can sort it so that you can look by age of I think they're sorted by alphabetical, but it's interesting to see, because we didn't do that before we submitted the scores, that they go by age of what the condition rating is. So obviously, the older the building, the lower the score goes. And some of that depends on what we've just done with the capital renewal, because obviously roofing, HVAC, those are more expensive than some of the other things that we replace. Any other questions? Okay, our next exciting topic is lead in water. I don't know if you know how to, can you change that?
This one?
Yep. So I wanted to bring this one forward. There is a new statute that just came out in July of 2021 that now has shifted the responsibility of testing for lead in water to the Department of Health. We have been testing lead in our water since 2016, and we've been doing it annually. The Department of Health, in working with them to make sure that they are approving our technical plan, which is in that lead sampling protocol. They've basically said, since we're testing every year, they probably wouldn't get to us until the very end. So I assume we'll continue testing every year. We test it has been about 1,500 drinking water outlets, but as we've replaced schools, that will go down by about half. And then as we continue our testing in our newer buildings, it's really the older buildings that we had some problems with. Obviously, testing for lead in the water is really important because it's really impactful for kids, especially our younger kids under the age of 6. If you click on the lead sampling protocol, that just kind of goes through and tells you how we do it. You know, if there's a first draw and it's less than 5 parts per billion, then we're good to go. If it's between 5 and 15, we do a second test. It's called a flush test, where you run the water for 30 seconds, take your sample, and take it back. Often the water sits in the pipe, and it will test higher. So we'll do the flush test. And we've had, it's interesting, over the time we've had rooms, depending on how they're used, if they don't, like the teacher doesn't let them use the bubbler, because we put water bottle drinking fountains in, they'll test hot some years and not other years. So we have been disconnecting our bubblers that test hot, just because now that we have the water bottle filling stations, kids don't like to use the bubblers in the classroom anymore as much. The other thing that's a little bit new is how families are notified. So once we go through and do our testing, we post the results on our webpage. This new statute requires us to share that with the school community for comment. So our mitigation efforts will be shared with that school community, and then we'll go ahead and do the mitigation work. If it's over 15 parts per billion, then it's shut the fixture off and get it mitigated right away. We don't have very many of those. We do have a maintenance plan ongoing where we clean the filters out to make sure everything is good to go, and maintenance does that as part of their preventive maintenance program. We're getting ready to test. We shut everything off with COVID. We shut off all the bubblers and drinking fountains, and so we have to go through and flush them, run them, test them before we want to turn them back on again. And we'll be doing that over spring break. Anyone have any questions?
Just remember, the development of this new statute was really controversial, and it took the legislature 2 or 3 years to get all the voices aligned so that a focus on this kind of safety could proceed. I'm pretty sure, does the Departments of Health publish the lead testing data that they receive?
They sampled 3 of our schools in 2018 and posted those on their website. In the statute, and there's some debate about whether or not ICOS, the inventory and condition of school facilities, is what our building condition, the asset preservation. There's some debate about whether or not the lead should be put, if that's the appropriate system for tracking. So Department of Health is looking for a way of reporting results. I don't know if you recall, when we first started testing back in 2016, the EPA level was 20 parts per billion. The Department of Health was 10 parts per billion. And with this new legislation, they've moved that down to 5 parts per billion.
Right. Okay. It leaves me with the sense that Evergreen is testing more than strictly required. And I see you're nodding your head. So, oh, there it goes. Huh, sorry. I had a question and it happened again.
As far as testing more, my feeling is that if we find some that exceed the limits, we should be dealing with those. And as we replace schools, we actually, you're not required to test a school built after 2016. We tested all our new schools, and we had one hot result at Sifton. And so we had to go back in. They had soldered a copper line, didn't catch it. So I'm glad that we tested it, because that's in the water in the kitchen. So we still do test that, and there is still a little trace of lead in the, they just made the trap a little bit longer so that that little bit of lead is more spread out over a bigger area.
Yeah.
And there's still lead in solder, so we're real cautious about it.
Thank you. I'll ask you the question later.
Okay. Thank you.
The legislative update.
I have WASDA's last in session from the now completed legislative session, which contains the bills that passed or didn't, that were in the interest of the school districts statewide. And I maintain the belief that our priorities and policies are very well aligned with what they've produced. And I'm going to forward those documents to you in your email. But I think Jennifer's memo basically took care of the funding pieces that we need to pay attention to, and there was a lot of good relief there. I'm not sure from the list whether there are any unfunded or overwhelming mandates that were introduced. I think they managed to avoid most of that. But it was good news, and I invite you to look at the documents. I'll take you through those when I get them emailed, which should be in the next half hour or so. Thank you.
That's it?
That's it. The session's over.
All right. I was getting cozy for our legislative update. It's been long ones lately.
It's been really peaceful.
There's been a lot.
Most of the urgency was around that prejudgment interest stuff, and that was dropped on the floor. The debate ended or something, and that was the only worry, the only high worry. And if I can find it, I'll also forward you an ask from WASDA for a request to the governor to veto a piece of a bill that has to do with how kindergarten is regulated. It might be important to take a look at that. And I think he does his vetoes on Friday.
Oh, interesting.
So read that through, and
We survived.
we survived.
Another session.
Mhm.
All right.
That is all.
With that, we're going to go ahead and adjourn for the evening. It is 7:58. Woohoo. Have a good night, you guys.
I need to grab the soup.